All right, guys, welcome back to the Fit Body Secrets podcast. I am Coach Cheryl, and I am here to bring you guys this week's fitness tips, any kind of inspiration, motivation, or anything that I can bring you guys to be more successful on your fitness journey. And today I've got my cup of coffee, as always, with my pumpkin spice, which is very seasonal this time of year, and it is Halloween weekend. Halloween, guys, is my favorite holiday of the year. I don't know why I like it. I actually don't really do much on Halloween, but just something about this time of year for me. And I know I put a Halloween episode out. I love the concept of being able to just dress up and have fun being whoever we want to be for one night, two night, three nights. And I actually also had written a article yesterday where I talked a lot about how, our common day society has changed so much to where when I was a kid, we used to go door to door trick or treating, right? That was a big thing when we were younger. And nowadays, that is no longer the norm. And in fact, most people don't do that anymore. And these trunk or treats have now come up as an opportunity for kids to still get the same experience without the dangers of obviously going up to a bunch of strangers' doors and asking for candy. And at first, I was kind of like, it just sucks that society has changed so much. But honestly, what I really like about it now is the fact that kids get to experience Halloween as a season, as like more than just one evening. And that's so cool that they can actually do it multiple times throughout the week and throughout the month and experience, obviously being able to wear a Halloween costume more than just one time, which is also good for parents who spend money on it. But, anyways, just my own little intro today because I love Halloween weekend. So, I'm actually going to be going tonight to a local, well, not too local. It's about 45 minutes south of me, but they have a thing called Fright Nights. And I don't, it's so funny because I'm usually in bed. I am the girl that likes to be in bed by 8 o'clock. I will lay in my bed so that I fall asleep before 9 because I am notoriously up every morning around 5 a.m. So the thought that I'm going to be out and just getting there at around 8 o'clock tonight is like, oh boy, it's going to be a long night because I know I'm likely going to wake up first thing in the morning, ready to go at 5 a.m. So not any kind of nutrition talks to start, but just want to kind of put that out there for you guys. If you're enjoying your Halloween weekend, make sure you listen to that episode that I put out about Halloween candy. Because, guys, here's the deal. Halloween is awesome, but the Halloween candy is around year round. Now, here's the deal is if you have a piece of Halloween candy, not the end of the world. Don't stress yourself out about it. But if you're using Halloween as now an excuse to be able to be indulging, it's not really anything special. A Kit Kat on October 31st is a Kit Kat on Monday. And most people start their week over on Monday, right? So it just depends on how you're looking at it. Today's episode is nothing about Halloween. Today, I want to talk to you guys about consistency. Consistency is something that I think we all know we need. And the things that we consistently do, we know we actually get progress in that area of our life. Or obviously, we often can see regression in our life from those things. And I do have some notes, so I want to just make sure I pull them up because consistency is something that you know, it ends up being almost like this, what's this like big thing. We make it such a big deal. Like, oh my God, how do I get more consistent? We beat ourselves up about it. When in reality, if we just look at consistency a little bit different, and maybe take the barrier of entry down for achieving it, we might actually be more successful. And today, that's what I wanted to kind of go over. So, give me a second. Let me pull up my notes. I'm just going to I'm still getting used to using this new platform for my podcast. So bear with me. I am used to recording these on my own time. And now that I'm going live with you guys, it's a little bit awkward, but I'm working on it. So I like to record my podcast when I'm in my flow. So that typically is going to be on a Saturday. So you're probably going to see me record 2 or 3 of these today. And good for you guys. You guys get them a little bit ahead of time before they actually go on the Apple. You get them on YouTube. So let's talk a little bit about consistency. All right, let me get my notes. Here we go. All right, come on, Apple computers. All right, guys. So first and foremost, let's talk about the definition of consistency. And I actually just like to always pull this up whenever I use a word as a title or a theme, just so you guys can really understand and get almost like, obviously we know what consistency is, but actually hearing the definition of it also helps. So to be consistent means to be marked by harmony, regularity, or steady continuity, free from variation or contradiction. So this is basically like we're going to consistently do something in a steady state. It shouldn't ever really become this thing that we're having to break up. So why I broke this up, or why I put this out there first, is that because when we are trying to get consistent with something new, it is going to require us to be inconsistent with something, right? So if we consistently are so used to, and I'm going to use this is all about nutrition, right? So if we are going to consistently get better at, let's just say we're trying to dial in our nutrition and we're trying to accurately keep a food journal, but we're also consistently just winging it throughout the day and picking things up at a restaurant. We have to break that habit. We have to become inconsistent with what we're currently doing to change something. So when we think about consistency, I want you guys to understand that we are already living a very consistent life right now. And so those things that you're doing consistently right now are giving you the results you had. And that is really important for me to get you guys to hear and soak in, because change is not easy. It is very easy to stay the same. And that is why it's so hard to become consistent at something new, because you have to become inconsistent with that thing that you keep doing. Nutrition and training are the two things I'm going to be focusing on today. And I could talk about some other things, even myself right now. I'm trying to get very consistent with making journaling a daily habit that doesn't feel forced. However, I've only been doing it now since July, and it still feels like a lot of effort. Nutrition, on the other aspect of things, keeping a food journal is not something that I struggle with, because I've been consistently doing that for years, and I know how to make that easier for myself. And I know it doesn't feel forced to me to do that. So you have to realize that to get consistent at something new, you have to be inconsistent at the other thing. And I've been trying to find with journaling a lot of things that work for me. I tried doing it at night. Now I'm trying to do it in the morning. So we have to break that thing. So here's the other thing, is that human nature. So most of us guys, when let's talk about why we're trying to change consistency, right? Why are we trying to get these new habits developed? Well, most of us have goals, right? So we have, we're trying to dial in our nutrition, not because we really care to eat healthy. It's because we want to see changes in our body or how we feel. We know that there is something wrong that we need to get better at. We need to fix, right? So we're trying to create the change to those things. And we know that we have to consistently do something different. But human nature, we are so conditioned to operate on instant gratification or an instant punishment. So meaning if you start tracking your food, let's just say you sign up for coaching with me, and, we're like, all right, we're dialing in food quality. We're dialing in, the macros, the calories, we're dialing in all these things. And the expectation is you should get an instant reward from that. That, like, if you start tracking your food and weighing your food and hitting your macros, that like week 1, you should be losing 2 pounds. That's the instant gratification speaking to you. And when people don't get that, they're like, well, why isn't this working? Well, you've been consistently living a very different lifestyle for a very long time. By the way, have you been consistently yo-yo dieting for the last 10 years of your life? Because guess what? Your body is going to consistently respond the same way now every time you try and diet. So we have to break that mindset of needing instant gratification. It's the same thing, though, on the flip side of things. We associate, something bad as an instant punishment. And where this goes wrong is it's the weekend right now. It's a Saturday morning. A person decides maybe they just started doing nutrition. They just started dialing in their nutrition this week. Maybe they're not even working with a coach. They're just like maybe focusing on food quality right now. And it's Saturday and they decide that they cave. They call it quote unquote cave. And they decide to have pizza for dinner. And now they're like, oh, instant punishment. I suck. I'm a failure. I guess I'm just going to quit this altogether. They punish themselves. They self-sabotage themselves because of one bad decision. And this is where we have to break this cycle of operating on this reward and punishment feedback loop and realize that that's not at all the goal. The goal is just to kind of find a consistent cadence in the habits and tracking progress along the way. So rather than searching for a reward for every action we take, we have to realize that the consistent actions that we continue to do over and over again are going to help us consistently have progress to track. And if we're doing it in a way that is also metric tracking, so we're actually calculating things, we can adjust along the way when things aren't going our way. But we have to get out of this emotional response that we often create and work with, I'm going to stick to this for X time and make sure that I'm giving it 100% before I try and jump ship. Okay. So, and I wrote down on my notes here that, guys, listen to this. Okay. One meal is not going to make you fat, right? Okay, so if I decide to have pizza tonight, I'm not going to gain 10 pounds tomorrow morning. However, if I keep eating in a calorie surplus over and over again, unintentionally, intentionally, whatever it is, I'm going to start gaining weight because I've consistently kept myself in a calorie surplus. Vice versa, if I show up at CrossFit for one day a week, I'm not going to get super fit, right? I've got to consistently be working out every single week. Maybe I start off with 2 or 3 days a week. I'm building up volume tolerance. Then I'm doing maybe 3 to 5 days a week. I'm building up volume tolerance. Now maybe I'm pushing the intensity a little bit more in those workouts. Maybe I decide I want to add in a Saturday session in the morning. So we're consistently adding progress, not always looking for that one thing that's going to be the make or break everything. Okay, so let me take a sip of my coffee, guys. The next thing that I had written down to kind of add on to this was the fact that, okay, so we're, most of us that are listening to this are, well, probably all of us are adults. And if you think about how long it took your body to develop, right? We weren't like born and then the next day we like grew up and had, a tall frame of 5'4", tall frame, right? We weren't, we didn't just develop overnight. It took years and years and years. In fact, we age, right? Every year we age a little bit more. We get a couple more wrinkles, we see changes in our body. It takes time, and we have to realize that we are a product of our lifestyle, and how we look right now and how we feel right now is not a change that happened like this. It happened over time. In fact, I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable with you. I have been going through my own like physical, mental struggles. And what I've recognized is where I'm at right now is not a reflection of what's happened to me over the last 2 or 3 months. This has been the last 2 or 3 years of me being an overachiever and just trying to do so much in my own personal goals and also the goals that I have for all of my clients and what I want to achieve with all of you guys out there in space that are listening to me. And with taking on so much stress in all areas of my life and not prioritizing things like getting enough sleep, which I am now working on, I had kind of run myself backwards and slowly started to see regression in everywhere in my life, especially in my athletic performance. And so that wasn't super fun to kind of come to terms with, but it didn't happen overnight. And I have metrics that I can track because I keep track of my workouts to see where things actually started to go down and how my mental state has changed in that period. So it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long, long time. So I know I'm rambling a lot about consistency, more so about the application or the reasons behind it and why we suck at it so much. But let's talk about, why this matters so much for you guys and how to make it more effective. So the number one thing consistency really matters is, like I already said, is that we are going to see the consistent progress if we are changing the actions we're taking in our life. So, if I've been eating takeout every single day for the last, 2 years, and I'm slowly gaining weight, and now I start cooking at home, well, one, I'm going to probably be saving some money, but two, I'll probably start to see some improvements in my body composition. However, it's not going to happen instantaneously. So the second piece of this consistency thing is understanding that if we are not enjoying the process of the consistent changes, it is going to be very difficult for us to stay committed to it. So I think a lot of people, when they start CrossFit, they stay consistent because they enjoy it. They show up because they now like going to the gym. They start to enjoy the communities. They start to, like the progress they're making. And that becomes more consistent for them because they find an enjoyable way to do it. With nutrition, which is where I'm really going to focus the rest of this episode on, is that people aren't trying to find things that are consistently enjoyable, right? So it's motivation driven. I am so motivated to lose weight, so I'm going to start meal prepping and planning and going to do all these things, and I'm going to try all these recipes, and I'm going to, cut out these food groups. And it's this like all or nothing mindset based on motivation and not based on a process that is like sustainable and enjoyable. That's got to be number one. Now, I'm not saying that change is easy. As I already said, why do I want to develop a journaling habit? Because I think it's going to help me be more mindful of my day. And but it's not easy for me to sit and write my thoughts down. In fact, I'm actually thinking about my method for journaling. I'm thinking about doing an audio journal, and I'm actually going to talk to my coach about that I think that I work better when I talk out my emotions rather than when I write them down, because my thoughts tend to go faster than I can write, and I can talk a lot faster than I can write. And he might not agree with me, but if that is more consistent for me to feel better and it's getting me the response, then that's how I change my process of journaling to be something that is enjoyable, that I can make consistent. Because if I can consistently do that and it's giving me the reward that I needed or the progress that I want to make, then it's going to work. Here's the deal with nutrition, though, is you don't have to meal prep. You don't have to have all of your foods portioned out at the beginning of the week. You don't have to cook. You have to find a consistent progress or consistent process that is easy for you to apply in your life. Life is going to be consistently inconsistent, meaning we are not going to be able to change our life to fit our nutrition and our training. Our nutrition and our training have to fit our life. And I think that this is where people go wrong with consistency is, and this is often where they break up with consistency, is because they start to use life situations as an excuse to why they can't be consistent. I was doing great, but the kids, this came up and the kids had volleyball and then I had this social thing and then I had to go out of town and then I got sick and then blah, 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 blah. And that's life, guys. That is life. Sorry, not sorry. Tough coach or tough love coach today. Life is consistently inconsistent. We cannot control the circumstances of our life. All we can do is control how we think about them and how we act despite of them. Okay. That means you have to learn to be a troubleshooter when it comes to nutrition. It means you have to learn to put away perfectionism and thinking that the only way to be successful is that you have to have all your meals already portioned out and ready for you to rock every single Sunday for the whole week. Life does not work in a fucking Tupperware. Sorry, it doesn't. You are never going to be able to control life. No way. There is no way I could walk out the door right now, God forbid, and get hit by a car. Whole life is just hit up. The whole life just changes. My whole day just changes. Get into a car accident, whole day changes. If all of a sudden my refrigerator breaks today, whole meal prep strategy changes. Okay, life is always going to bring us obstacles. Those are crazy things, but we can't control it. We cannot control what's happening in our life. All we can do is control how we react to it and how we prepare for it. And the best way to prepare for these inconsistent life events is to have practice with them. Every time something happens and you learn to react differently than the way you have in the past, makes you that much more resilient for the next time. It's a learning opportunity. It's it. It's all learning opportunities. It's not waiting for perfection. The people that wait for perfection never get perfection. They never get consistent with those changes. They stay stuck. They do. They stay stuck. They stay miserable. So you guys have to realize that we can't control life. All right. So let's talk about consistency in terms of application. So we all know, as I've been kind of keep beating the dead horse or whatever you want to call it. I hate that saying. Is that we need to be more consistent with the changes we want to make so we can see the progress we want to make, right? So, and let's just talk about macros in general, because I think that macros is what a lot of people are now gravitating towards in terms of nutrition, which I do like, but I also think that it can be overemphasized and these types of things might be underemphasized. So let's just say that you're having a hard time, hitting your macronutrients every day. Well, how consistent are you with just food journaling? How consistent are you with just, the basics, right? So let's talk about application of things to kind of make you guys have some direction in terms of how to be more consistent. And it starts off with knowing what is the goal of the consistent thing you are trying to do in your life. Okay. So, and that's why I brought up that topic about the macros and the tracking. All right. So let's just say you're like, Cheryl, I really would like to lose 20 pounds and I want to look leaner. I want to perform better in the gym. And I know that I'm just carrying this extra weight and it's just making me feel heavy and I don't like the way that I look. And, I think that I want to cut this 20 pounds, but I just can't seem to get consistent with the macro stuff. I can't figure it out. Like, I don't know why I can't do it. Well, the goal then is you want to lose some weight. You want to lose 20 pounds. You want to feel better. And the consistent thing you can't do is consistently hit your macronutrients. You have a hard time with that. So it all starts with one, having a well thought out plan of execution and asking yourself why that is inconsistent for you. Is it that you are hungry and that you aren't able to hit those macros because you keep going over because you're hungry? Is it because you don't know how to actually plan your food out ahead of time and that you need to take the time to plan your food out ahead of time? Or is it that you just tend to get like midweek overwhelmed and you start to lose focus on your goals? So asking yourself what the goal is and why it's difficult for you to be consistent with it are the two things that you're going to need to start with. Because if you have those two things, now we can troubleshoot. Okay. This is where having a coach, not a plug for coaching, but a plug for coaching, helps you out a lot, because maybe the issue is maybe you don't need to be focusing so much on hitting perfect macros. What? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Maybe the first step for you is, if it is you just get overwhelmed midweek and you're having a hard time, maybe this week we're like, hey, let's just focus on getting in enough protein every single day and keeping an accurate food journal and trying to keep your calorie budget pretty consistent from day to day. Do you think that you can handle that? Yeah, that's easy. Because that's what I was having a hard time with. I kept going over on my fats and under on my carbs because I was having to rely on convenience food on Thursday and Friday. Okay, cool. Let's try that this week. Guess what? Now that person has consistently been able to make that change. So this is where you have to realize that it's so important to know what you're having a hard time with to troubleshoot it. Vice versa, maybe the person is freaking starving and they can't keep up with their macros. They don't want to. They're not motivated because they're like, this sucks. I'm hungry all the time. Well, yeah, if you're hungry all the time, you're probably not going to want to be tracking your macros, right? So this is where, if you guys recognize that it's not this all or nothing and you should not be just following a calculator, that your biofeedback matters. How you feel matters. What if it's like week 1 and you're starving, do you really think you're going to be able to be consistent for 4 or 6 weeks of hitting those numbers? Absolutely not. Talking to yourself, if you're coaching yourself, or talking to your coach about your program is really, really, really important. So we have to realize that, knowing that the method that we're using and the effort that it creates are the two things that we need to be consistent, or the two things that we need in order for us to be consistent. This comes down to my next topic, which is understanding your threshold. And I like using these words that I often use in training, because threshold training in CrossFit is something that a lot of people underemphasize. It's always got to be like lying on my back dead after the workout, or like, I'm just not going to go to the gym. Threshold training is learning to train at that like sustainable intensity. It's not always fun, but consistently in your habits, that's how you should feel. It should feel like it's thoughtful, but it's not overwhelming. Okay. So in the beginning, the first couple of days, you might have to think about some things a little bit more. If you've never tracked your food before, yeah, you might be spending a little bit more time entering entries. But guess what? MyFitnessPal does a great job of saving those things. So you only have to do that one time. It's the first day of school, essentially. You're going to have a lot of things to learn, but once you fall into a groove, you're going to be good to go. So you have to find that threshold that is like sustainable for you. And that's why taking down the perfectionism of what you're expecting of yourself is also important. Okay. The next thing I had written down was identifying what you really need to be more consistent with. And I'm going to use that same example of the, person trying to lose 20 pounds. Okay. So as I already mentioned, like if she's trying to track her macros, she's trying to do all these different things, but all she's really trying to do is honestly lose 20 pounds. And she might not need to be perfect on her macros. As long as she's getting a good balance and she feels good, and we're checking in weekly and we're addressing based on her biofeedback, now we can actually be a lot more successful with progress. Because consistently, all she needs to do to lose weight is getting enough protein, monitoring her calorie intake, accurately tracking her food. From there, we can now say, all right, how's your energy in your workouts? Okay, let's just go ahead and add a little bit of carbs at lunch? Can you bump up your rice to 1.25 cups versus 1 cup? We can make small changes to allow her to be more successful at shifting those things without causing so much overwhelm. Okay. I think this is where people also run into a problem is they tend to focus on too many things. That perfection, let's just talk about perfectionism. Perfectionism is never going to create consistency because it's just like life. We can't control it. We can't always have the perfect scenario. So rather than trying to focus on all the things you need to be doing, focus on one important detail. Let's just say you are the person that's having a hard time tracking your food because you're too busy throughout the day. Well, usually it's because you're not making it a priority. So the change really is focus on making it a priority first. Okay, now you've cut out this random eating throughout the day. Now you have a plan that you can be disciplined and committed to executing on. Okay, so that's going to make it difficult for you in the moment because you're going to have to practice some discipline, but it's going to make it easier for you to be consistent with the habit of making sure that you have an accurate account for the food that you have taken in, and it's going to be able to be sustainable long term. So, guys, consistency episode, because I want you guys to understand that the key to all of the results that you want in the gym, with your body, with your life, comes down to what you are consistently doing to achieve those things. Okay, so kind of recapping some of my themes today is number one, you have to have a goal and you need to have a action plan that is allowing you to quote unquote train at a threshold that is sustainable and enjoyable. Once you have those things, okay, drop the perfectionism that life is always going to give you a Tupperware and the perfect storm, and recognize that you have to operate despite all of those things. And learning how to become a troubleshooter when life throws you curveballs is how you stay consistent. It's not always going to be peaches and, cream. It's not. Why am I using these fucking dumbass things today? I don't even know. I'm just really passionate about talking about this. But you're not always going to have the perfect scenario, guys. Learning how to operate in chaos is what you need to do. How do you find a meal at a restaurant that is going to look very similar to something that you would eat at home? You can do that at pretty much every single restaurant nowadays, I promise you. Even if you have to special order it. Because guess what? They probably have it. It might just not be on the menu. Okay. I am all about troubleshooting. So I want to know if you are having a hard time creating consistent changes in your life and you are trying to find ways to become more consistent with those things to see the progress that you want to make, shoot me a message. I want to know because I really want to be able to help you guys out. That's all I got, guys. Peace out.